This is your video on the commutative property, the associative property, and the distributive property. The first one that I'll talk about is the commutative property. So the commutative property, this happens when we change the order of two terms. We only have one for addition and multiplication, not subtraction, not division. So let me show you a couple of examples. So here's the first example. The commutative property tells me that this equation is true. 3 plus 2 equals 2 plus 3. So I change the order of the two terms around an addition sign. So this would be the commutative property of addition. This would also be the commutative property of addition. So it even works with variables. The next one is an example of the commutative property of multiplication. So AB means that I'm multiplying A and B, and I switch the order. So it tells me that that equation is true. Those two are really equal. Another commutative property of multiplication. So 3 times x equals x plus 3. 3 times x equals x times 3. The next property I'll talk about is the associative property. So a lot of students mix up the associative property and the commutative property. So remember, with the associative property, the order does not change. So again, this is only for addition and multiplication. And let me show you a couple of examples and I'll explain. Order does not change, and also what changes for the associative property from one side to the other is what's in the parentheses. So here we have on the left side A plus B in the parentheses. On the right side it's now B plus C. However, if you take a look at both sides, it's still in the order of A, B, and C from left to right. So it's definitely not the commutative property. It would have to be the associative property. And this would be of addition. This example would be, again, the associative property, but now for multiplication because we're multiplying everything. So again, I still have A, B, and C all in order from left to right, but on the left side I have A times B, on the right side I have B times C. Here is another example, but this time I'm adding everything together. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 is still in that order, but on the left 1 and 2 are together, on the right 2 and 3 are together in the parentheses. Finally, the last example, I'm multiplying the 3, the x, and the y, same order, but again I changed who is associated together, if you think of it that way, what is in the parentheses. All right, and then that leaves the distributive property. That's our last one to talk about. So with the distributive property, a term is multiplied by an entire quantity in parentheses. So what we have to do is make sure that each term inside the parentheses is multiplied by the term that's on the outside of the parentheses. So if you take a look at this example, we have 3 times the quantity x plus 2. So the distributive property tells me that 3 times x plus 3 times 2 is equal to what we start off with on the left. And if we do 3 times x, that's 3x plus, and then 3 times 2 is 6. So everything gets multiplied by the 3. Another example, same kind of thing, just a different example. 10 times 2x is 20x, and 10 times 1 is 10. And so again, the distributive property tells me that these two are equal. And then here's one more. So this time we have a negative 4 times the quantity x plus 2. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x, and negative 4 times a positive 2 is negative 8. So again, that is the distributive property.